The universe had always seemed endless, peaceful, and quiet. Stars blinked in the darkness, each one a sun, a symbol of life across the void. Planets spun in their orbits, and civilizations rose and fell. But beneath the stillness, something was stirring, something no one could have predicted. Humanity had always thought the cosmos was vast and unconquerable, but the truth was about to hit them like a hammer. For years, humans had lived in peace. Earth was no longer a battlefield. Wars had been fought, won, and forgotten, and humanity had begun to focus on building and advancing. There was peace, or so it seemed. People went about their daily lives, focusing on technology, science, and exploration. They never dreamed that the quiet they had known was only the calm before the storm. Then came the message. It was a single transmission, a faint signal sent from the depths of space, picked up by Earth's most advanced listening stations. The message was simple: prepare, the end is near. At first, humanity didn't know what to make of it. Was it a hoax, a joke? But the message wasn't from Earth, and it wasn't from anyone they knew. It came from a civilization that had traveled through the stars, a race of beings whose power far surpassed anything humans had seen before. The warning wasn't a threat. It was a declaration. They were coming, and nothing could stop them. The leaders of Earth tried to dismiss the warning. They believed that no force, no matter how powerful, could threaten them. Humanity had survived countless challenges in the past: war, disease, disasters, but nothing could prepare them for what was to come. As the days passed, the message grew louder. It was clear now that the threat was real. Across the globe, governments began to take notice. Military leaders scrambled to prepare their forces. But what could they do? The enemy was unknown, and their fleet was already on the move, traveling through the stars with a terrifying speed. In the depths of the military command centers, humanity's top generals and strategists worked feverishly to come up with a plan. Earth's defenses, though formidable, were nowhere near enough to face an intergalactic force that could travel across light years in the blink of an eye. And the aliens, their ships were unlike anything humans had ever seen. Sleek, dark, and designed for war, they had no weakness that could be easily exploited. Humanity was about to face its greatest challenge, and no one knew what the outcome would be. It was then that humanity's greatest asset revealed itself. A single scientist, working alone in her lab, discovered something that would change everything. Her name was Dr. Maria Lang, and her discovery was nothing short of revolutionary. While the rest of the world was focused on military strategies, Dr. Lang realized that the enemy's technology wasn't invincible. There was a flaw, a tiny crack in their armor that could bring the whole empire down. She shared her findings with the top brass, and while skeptical at first, the military leaders quickly realized the importance of her discovery. They worked together to craft a weapon that could target the enemy's weakness. But it would take time that they didn't have. The enemy's fleet was moving fast, and soon it would be upon them. The world held its breath as the countdown began. Tension ran high as humans scrambled to finalize their defenses. The people of Earth could feel it, deep in their bones. The storm was coming, and nothing could stop it. But what the invaders didn't know was that humanity had something they didn't: the ability to adapt, the will to fight, and most importantly, the spirit to survive. Humans had been knocked down before, but they always got back up. And this time, they were about to show the universe just how strong they truly were. As the enemy fleet drew closer, Earth's forces made their final preparations. Ships were launched, defenses were activated, and the weapons that would decide the fate of humanity were put into place. The invaders had underestimated humanity. They believed that Earth was just another weak, primitive world, ripe for the taking. They never expected that the humans they saw as insignificant would be the ones to turn the tide of battle. The first signs of conflict came when the alien fleet appeared just outside Earth's orbit. Massive ships, hundreds of miles long, cloaked in darkness, appeared like shadows on the edge of the solar system. They moved with precision, their purpose clear. They had come to conquer, and they would not leave without achieving their goal. Earth's military responded, launching their own fleet to meet the alien invaders head-on. But it wasn't enough. The alien ships were faster, stronger, and more advanced than anything humanity had ever encountered. The first battle was a disaster. Earth's forces were pushed back, their ships destroyed in the blink of an eye. The aliens showed no mercy, wiping out entire fleets in a matter of minutes. It was clear. This war was unlike anything humans had ever faced. But humanity wasn't ready to give up. They had survived worse, and they would survive this. Dr. Lang's discovery gave them hope, a spark of light in the darkest hour. The weapon was ready. Now all they had to do was wait for the perfect moment to strike. As the alien armada grew closer, humanity's defenses grew stronger. The planet was preparing for war. The battle for Earth had only just begun, and the entire universe would soon see what humanity was truly capable of. The storm had arrived, but it was far from over. And this time, it was humanity's turn to change the game. The calm had shattered, and the moment of truth was upon them. Earth's defense fleet was in position, and the massive alien armada hovered just outside the planet's orbit, its sheer size casting an ominous shadow over the entire solar system. The alien ships were sleek and terrifying, far more advanced than anything humanity had ever seen. Their weapons were powerful, their shields nearly impenetrable. They had come with one purpose: to conquer, to wipe out any resistance, and to claim Earth as their own. In humanity's last stand, Earth's military had sent their finest ships into the fight, each armed with the best weapons they could muster. They were no match for the alien invaders in terms of technology, but humanity had something the aliens didn't: desperation, resolve, and a willingness to fight for their survival. The stakes were higher than ever. Admiral Blake stood on the command deck of the Indomitable, Earth's most advanced warship, staring at the massive alien fleet on the holographic display. His mind raced, trying to calculate the best strategy for this impossible situation. There was no time for hesitation, no time for second guesses. The war had already begun, and there was no turning back. "Sir, the alien fleet is advancing," reported Lieutenant Darnell, his voice tense as he studied the data on his console. "They're deploying attack drones." "Prepare for engagement," Admiral Blake ordered, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "We hold the line here. No matter what, we cannot let them breach the atmosphere." The battle began with a deafening roar as the alien drones surged forward, cutting through space like a swarm of deadly locusts. Earth's ships responded in kind, launching missiles and energy blasts into the void. The first exchange of fire was brutal. Alien drones were shattered by Earth's advanced weaponry, but for every one destroyed, two more took its place. The sheer number of enemies seemed endless. The sky over Earth became a chaotic battlefield. Explosions lit up the dark expanse of space as Earth's ships and the alien armada clashed in a spectacle of fire and metal. It was clear that Earth's military was outmatched. The aliens were better coordinated, their ships more maneuverable, their weapons more lethal. Within minutes, Earth's defense lines were faltering. Admiral Blake clenched his fists, watching as one of Earth's warships, the Defender, was obliterated in a massive explosion. The ship's shields had failed, and the alien drones poured in, tearing through the vessel like a knife through paper. In an instant, the Defender was no more. "Keep fighting," Blake shouted, his voice carrying over the intercom. "We can't let them break through." Despite the valiant efforts of Earth's forces, the alien armada continued to press forward, overwhelming the humans at every turn. But Admiral Blake and his crew were determined. They wouldn't let Earth fall without giving it their all. On the ground, humanity was also preparing for the worst. Cities across the planet had gone into lockdown, with civilians being evacuated into bunkers and underground shelters. The world held its breath, waiting for the inevitable. The enemy's forces were unstoppable, but humanity refused to go down without a fight. Meanwhile, in a secret underground lab, Dr. Maria Lang and her team worked frantically to finalize their weapon. The pressure was mounting. The alien fleet was closing in, and humanity's last hope rested on this one final chance. If the weapon failed, Earth was finished. If it worked, the balance of power in the galaxy could shift forever. Dr. Lang's hand shook as she inputted the final coordinates into the system. "This is it," she whispered to herself. "It's now or never." With a flick of her wrist, the weapon powered up. The system hummed to life, its energy surging through the lab. The device had been designed to target the very flaw in the alien ship's technology, a flaw that humanity had uncovered only through sheer determination and intelligence. Outside, the battle raged on. Earth's forces were being pushed back, but there was still a glimmer of hope. A small fleet of Earth's ships, led by the Indomitable, had managed to break through the alien defenses. But it was only a matter of time before the alien fleet would overwhelm them. "Fire the weapon," Dr. Lang said, her voice resolute as she initiated the command. At that moment, across the skies, something incredible happened. A pulse of energy shot out from Earth, its brilliant light cutting through the darkness of space like a comet streaking across the heavens. The pulse hit the first alien ship with pinpoint accuracy. The alien ship's shields flickered, and within seconds, it erupted into a fiery explosion. The shockwave from the blast rippled through space, sending ripples of destruction across the alien fleet. The aliens hadn't expected this. No one had. The humans had done the unthinkable. They had found a way to fight back. What the hell was that? Admiral Blake gasped, his eyes widening in disbelief as he watched the alien ships begin to falter. "It's a weapon," Lieutenant Darnell said, his voice trembling with awe. "Humanity's weapon." As the pulse of energy continued to cut through the alien armada, Earth's remaining ships launched a coordinated assault. The invaders, now stunned by the sudden turn of events, were caught off guard. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens were on the defensive. The alien fleet was scrambling to regroup, but they had underestimated humanity. They had assumed that they would sweep across Earth with ease. But now, they were facing a force unlike anything they had ever encountered. Humanity had made its stand, and they had just turned the tide. However, the war was far from over. The aliens were still powerful, their numbers vast. But the first victory had been won. Humanity had proven that they could fight back. And now the aliens would learn the hard way that underestimating humans was the greatest mistake they could make. As the battle continued, Earth's forces pressed on, the momentum shifting in their favor. The war was only just beginning, and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Humanity had shown that they could not be defeated, and the alien invaders would soon learn that they had underestimated the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The pulse weapon had proven to be humanity's first victory, but it was just the beginning of the real battle. As Earth's defense forces advanced, taking advantage of the alien fleet's sudden vulnerability, Admiral Blake found himself facing a new, more dangerous reality. The alien armada had been shaken, but it was far from defeated. They would not fall so easily. On the Indomitable, the mood was a mix of cautious optimism and tension. The crew had seen the shocking effect of the pulse weapon, but they knew that the alien invaders were relentless. They would adapt, evolve, and fight back with everything they had. The war was far from over. "Admiral, we've intercepted a transmission from the alien flagship," Lieutenant Darnell said, his voice steady but filled with uncertainty. "They're reorganizing. It looks like they're preparing a counterattack." Blake's eyes narrowed as he processed the information. The aliens were not going to take this lying down. In fact, their retaliation would likely be swift and brutal. They were organized, well-coordinated, and technologically superior. The advantage humanity had gained was temporary, and they would need to press forward before the aliens had time to fully regroup. "Set course for the flagship," Admiral Blake ordered, his tone firm. "We've already taken the first step. Now, we finish this." The Indomitable surged forward, cutting through the stars as its engines powered up. Behind them, a handful of remaining Earth warships followed, ready to engage the alien forces. The battle was intensifying. Humanity's victory had shaken the very foundation of the alien fleet, but they were not yet free. Every move now would be critical. Meanwhile, the alien flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed anything humanity had ever seen, was preparing its final strike. The leaders of the alien race, who had once believed their conquest of Earth was inevitable, were now in a frenzy, plotting their retaliation. They couldn't afford to let their invasion fail. The consequences of defeat would be too severe. This was no longer about conquering Earth. It was about survival. Inside the alien flagship's war room, the high-ranking commanders were desperate. "We cannot allow this to continue," one of the generals said, slamming his fist onto the table. "They've breached our defenses, but they don't understand the full extent of our capabilities. We must launch everything we have at them." His counterpart, a cold and calculating leader, nodded in agreement. The human weapon may have given them a temporary edge, but they are still vastly inferior. "We will destroy them, just as we've destroyed countless others before." The aliens' war preparations were swift, their fleet now reorganized and ready to unleash the full force of their power. But what they didn't expect was the speed with which humanity was adapting. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, Earth's forces had proven they could fight smarter, not just harder. On Earth, in the command center of a hidden military base, Dr. Lang and her team continued to monitor the situation. They knew that the pulse weapon had changed the tide, but they also knew it wasn't enough to guarantee victory. The aliens had learned from their first encounter. Humanity had to innovate, to adapt faster than the enemy. The war had just become a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. "We need more," Dr. Lang said, her mind racing with ideas. "We need something stronger, something that can pierce their defenses and leave them with no escape." One of her engineers looked up, his eyes wide with excitement. "What if we enhance the pulse weapon? What if we give it more power, a wider range? We could cripple their fleet in one go." Dr. Lang considered this for a moment. It was a risk. There was no telling how the aliens would respond to such an assault, and humanity was running out of time. The alien fleet was on the move. The final confrontation was approaching. Back on the Indomitable, Admiral Blake was watching as the alien flagship loomed closer in the distance. It was a fortress of metal and alien technology, a symbol of the power that had nearly wiped out humanity. But now it was just a target. Blake's crew had no intention of letting it escape. "We've got one shot at this," Blake said, his voice cold with determination. "All ships, prepare to engage. We don't stop until they're defeated." The time had come. Humanity was no longer the underdog. They had fought for survival. And now, they had the chance to strike a decisive blow. As the Indomitable and the remaining Earth fleet charged forward, the alien flagship opened fire, unleashing a barrage of energy blasts that lit up the dark void of space. The human ships dodged and retaliated, their weapons now fully charged. The first wave of missiles tore into the alien shields, weakening their defenses. The tide of the battle had shifted, and now humanity had the upper hand. But the alien flagship wasn't going down without a fight. It retaliated with a devastating counterattack, launching a swarm of drones and energy cannons that cut through the human fleet. The sky over Earth seemed to be a maze of explosions and flashing lights, but Earth's forces were unyielding. Each blow they took, they returned twofold. They were fighting for more than just their survival. They were fighting for the future of humanity. As the battle raged on, Admiral Blake knew one thing for sure. The aliens had underestimated humanity. They had believed Earth's forces would fold under pressure, that they would be crushed like every other species they had conquered. But humanity had proven them wrong. They had learned from their mistakes, adapted, and fought back. The war was far from over, but Earth's forces were no longer at a disadvantage. They had become a force to be reckoned with. And now, the aliens would pay the price for their underestimation. Humanity was not just fighting for survival. They were fighting for revenge. The first strike had been the pulse weapon. But now, the battle had escalated to a full-scale war. The aliens had come to Earth thinking they could conquer it easily, but they had awoken something far more dangerous: humanity's will to fight. The chaos of the battle raged on. The Earth's fleet, now battered but not broken, continued to press forward. Their weapons were running low, and their systems were strained. Yet they had one thing that the alien armada couldn't predict: unshakable resolve. The vast expanse of space, once an intimidating battlefield, had become a testament to humanity's refusal to yield. Admiral Blake stood at the command center, his gaze fixed on the view screen. He saw the glowing energy pulses of the alien ships, the swarms of drones slicing through the void like deadly locusts. Every second felt like a lifetime. But through the smoke and fire of space, he saw something else: cracks. The alien fleet, while formidable, was showing signs of weakness. "Captain, any word from Dr. Lang?" Blake asked, his voice steady, despite the storm of emotions within him. "Still no word, Admiral," Captain Carver replied, scanning his console. "But we got an update from the fleet. Several of their flagship's weapon systems are offline. The pulse weapons seem to have taken a toll." Blake's mind raced. The aliens had never expected the humans to have a weapon of such devastating power. The pulse weapon had done its job, disrupted their advanced technology. But the battle wasn't over yet. Humanity needed a final push. On the surface of Earth, deep in a hidden lab beneath the mountains, Dr. Lang and her team were working frantically. They had succeeded in amplifying the pulse weapon's effects. But it wasn't enough. The aliens had shown resilience, and there was only so much humanity could do with limited resources. "We need something bigger, something that will break through their final defenses," Dr. Lang said, staring at the holographic map in front of her. "We need a way to bring down their flagship once and for all." The engineer standing beside her nodded. "We've been analyzing their power grid. I think we can overload their core reactor using a high-density charge. It's risky, but if it works, we can neutralize their fleet." Dr. Lang felt a spark of hope, but it quickly turned to resolve. "Get it ready. We don't have much time." Back in space, the Earth fleet had suffered heavy losses, but they were fighting with everything they had. The alien flagship loomed ahead, its ominous silhouette blocking out the stars. Its engines flared as it powered up, preparing for one final, catastrophic assault. The Earth ships moved with precision, swarming around it like predators closing in on their prey. This was their moment. It had to be. Admiral Blake's voice boomed across the comms. "All ships, target their core reactor. This is our one shot. Give it everything you've got." The fleet surged forward, their weapons unleashing a torrent of energy. The alien flagship returned fire, its weapons slashing through space with brutal force. The battle had reached a crescendo, and the humans were determined to finish it. Blake watched as the weapons from his fleet pounded into the alien ship's hull, but it wasn't enough. The flagship's shields were still holding strong. Humanity needed to hit harder, much harder. Then came the signal. "We're ready, Admiral." Dr. Lang's voice came through the comms, filled with tension. "We've got the charge ready for detonation. It's set to overload their core." Blake took a deep breath. "Do it." From Earth, a powerful wave of energy shot into space, heading straight for the alien flagship. It was a calculated gamble. If it worked, it would cripple the alien ship's core and destroy their entire fleet. But if it failed, humanity would be left vulnerable to a devastating counterstrike. The alien flagship's weapons fired, but at that moment, everything seemed to slow down. The powerful charge hit the alien core, and for a split second, the alien ship seemed to tremble. Then came the explosion. The burst of light brighter than anything Blake had ever seen illuminated the battlefield. The alien flagship was engulfed in flames, its hull breaking apart, and its core erupting in a brilliant, destructive display. But the explosion wasn't just a victory for humanity. It was a warning. The shockwave from the blast rippled through space, sending a message to the alien armada. This was the power humanity had unlocked. This was the force they had unleashed. The remaining alien ships, shocked by the sudden loss of their flagship and crippled by the pulse weapon, hesitated. Some tried to retreat, but it was too late. Humanity had not only fought back, they had turned the tide in their favor. The alien armada was in disarray, their once pristine organization shattered. It was clear they had underestimated humanity's resilience and ability to fight back. Admiral Blake's voice broke through the silence that followed the explosion. "Don't let up. Finish them." The Earth fleet surged forward once more, their ships united, their spirits unbroken. With the alien flagship destroyed, the remaining forces had no choice but to scatter, realizing they had lost the war. However, even in the heat of victory, Blake knew the fight wasn't completely over. The war had ended for the invaders, but the consequences of their actions would ripple across the galaxy for years to come. Humanity had made their stand, and now, no one would ever underestimate them again. The war was over, and humanity had emerged victorious. But this victory came with a price. Earth would rebuild, stronger and more determined. And the universe would remember that humanity was not just a species to be feared, but one to be respected. The tides of war had changed forever. The galaxy had learned an important lesson: never underestimate humanity. The silence that followed the battle was deafening. The once thriving battlefield was now a graveyard of twisted, broken ships, human and alien alike. The alien armada that had come to conquer Earth was no more. Its ships floated lifelessly in the void, a stark reminder of the immense power humanity had just unleashed. Admiral Blake stood on the bridge of the flagship, staring out into the aftermath. The stars, so bright and inviting just hours ago, now felt cold and distant. The crew moved around him, their faces a mixture of exhaustion, disbelief, and pride. They had won, but at what cost? "Admiral," Captain Carver's voice broke the stillness. "We've lost a significant portion of our fleet. The damage to the defense systems on Earth is severe. It'll take months, maybe years, to rebuild." Blake nodded somberly. He knew the reality all too well. Victory in battle did not come without sacrifices. The price of this war would be paid in blood, resources, and time. But one thing was certain: humanity had proved its place in the galaxy. The war, while devastating, had made the universe take notice. "The survivors of the alien fleet are retreating, sir," reported Lieutenant Harris, his eyes glued to the tactical display. "They're disorganized, and their morale is shattered. Some of their ships are attempting to make a jump to their homeworld, but they're being picked off." "Good," Blake said quietly. "Let them return to their people, and tell them what happened here. Tell them that Earth will not be conquered, that humanity will never bow down to anyone." As the Earth fleet swept through the remains of the alien armada, Blake's mind wandered back to the moment that had changed everything. The moment Dr. Lang's charge had struck the alien flagship and ignited the final battle. He thought about the faces of the crew, the sacrifices they made, and the indomitable spirit that had brought them to this point. But there was more to consider now. The war was over, but the galaxy had changed. Earth's enemies had learned a harsh lesson, but there would always be others. Other forces who would test humanity's resolve, perhaps more cunning or more ruthless than the last. "Admiral, we've received a message," Carver said, breaking Blake's train of thought. "It's from the Galactic Council." Blake frowned. He had anticipated this. The Council had been watching Earth's rise with a mixture of fear and fascination. They had been silent during the conflict, but now that the war was over, they would want answers. "Put it through," Blake ordered. The holoscreen flickered to life, and a group of alien diplomats appeared before him. They were from a species Blake recognized: the Kitharn, a powerful race that had long been rumored to hold sway in the galactic political landscape. Their leader, a tall figure with a smooth metallic complexion, spoke first. "Admiral Blake," the Catharn diplomat said, his voice cold and calculating. "We congratulate Earth on its victory. However, we must remind you that this conflict has grave implications for the balance of power in the galaxy. The alien forces you defeated were not merely invaders. They were pawns in a much larger game." Blake's eyes narrowed. "What are you implying?" "The war you just fought," the diplomat continued, "was orchestrated by a faction that operates outside the laws of the galaxy. We, the Galactic Council, have been aware of their existence for some time. They have been manipulating events, causing chaos to further their own agenda. The alien fleet that attacked Earth was only a small part of their plan. You have destroyed one piece of their puzzle, but the larger picture remains." Blake's stomach twisted. "So this war was never about us?" "No," the diplomat said. "It was about testing your species. You've passed. Barely." Blake felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The war may have been won, but humanity had just become a player on a much larger and far more dangerous stage. The galaxy wasn't just a battleground. It was a chessboard, and Earth had just been thrust into the game. "We're not afraid of your larger picture," Blake said, his voice firm. "We've proven that humanity cannot be conquered. If anyone comes for us again, we will be ready." The Catharn diplomat nodded, but there was a hint of something else in his expression, a trace of wariness. "We shall see, Admiral. We shall see." As the communication ended, Blake turned to look at the stars once more. He could feel the weight of their gaze, heavy and distant. Humanity had taken its place in the galaxy, but with it came the responsibility of knowing that their actions had consequences that stretched far beyond Earth. On the surface of Earth, the recovery efforts had begun. The cities that had been ravaged by the war were slowly being rebuilt, and the survivors were working tirelessly to restore the damage. Humanity had been tested, and they had passed, but there was still much work to be done. Blake's thoughts drifted to his crew, the men and women who had fought alongside him, who had lost so much, and who had never given up. The war had ended, but the true battle for humanity's future was just beginning. There would be no resting on their laurels. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, but now they would have to prove it time and time again. As Blake gazed out into the vast expanse of space, he knew one thing for certain: humanity had awakened, and the universe would never forget the lesson it had learned that day. The celebrations on Earth were short-lived. While the galaxy had witnessed humanity's great victory over the alien armada, the world now faced the consequences of its success. The victory over the alien invaders had sent shockwaves through the cosmos, but it had also alerted something far more dangerous, an entity hidden in the shadows, watching from afar. Admiral Blake stood on the balcony of the newly reconstructed Earth Defense Headquarters in Washington. Below, the streets were filled with people celebrating their survival and newfound strength. It was a strange feeling, victory overshadowed by the uncertainty of what lay ahead. Blake could see the smiles of the people, but in his mind, something gnawed at him, a sense of impending danger. "We've won the battle, Admiral. But I think you know we've only scratched the surface," Captain Carver said, his voice cutting through Blake's thoughts. He stood next to Blake, his face serious, scanning the horizon. Blake turned to look at his captain, his expression grim. "I'm not worried about the aliens. They'll lick their wounds and stay quiet for a while. What I'm concerned about is what the Catharn said. Someone else is pulling the strings. Do you think the Galactic Council knows who these shadow players are?" Carver asked, his voice laced with doubt. Blake didn't answer immediately. His mind raced back to the conversation with the Catharn diplomat, who had warned of the larger powers at play. While Earth's victory had been sweet, it had exposed a deeper web of intrigue, a web that spanned across the galaxy. Blake was certain the Catharn were not entirely forthcoming. They knew more than they had let on, but they were hesitant to reveal too much. For now, humanity was on its own. A low rumble echoed through the building, the faint sound of sirens blaring in the distance. Blake's heart sank. "What was that?" Carver asked, his eyes widening in alarm. Blake grabbed his communicator. "What's happening?" "Report." A crackling voice came through the device, urgent and breathless. "Admiral Blake, something's happening at the outer perimeter. We've detected several unidentified ships approaching Earth. They're not responding to hails. We're on alert." Blake felt a chill crawl up his spine. "Send everything we've got. Do not engage until I give the order. Prepare the fleet for defensive measures." As Blake and Carver rushed toward the command center, the weight of the situation grew heavier. They had won the war, but that victory had drawn the attention of powers beyond their understanding. The stakes had changed. The moment Earth had proven its might, it had also made itself a target. The command center buzzed with activity. Officers worked quickly, their faces etched with tension. Lieutenant Harris stood at the helm of the communications station, his hands flying over the controls as he updated Blake on the incoming ships. "We're tracking the unknown ships now, Admiral. They've just crossed the Mars orbit. There's no sign of weapons or hostile intent, yet they seem to be slowing down." Blake leaned over the console, his eyes scanning the rapidly updating data on the screen. The ships were strange, their design unlike anything Earth had encountered before. Long, angular structures with an eerie metallic sheen. The ships didn't match any known fleet, human or alien. "Admiral, I think we should prepare for the worst," Carver said, his voice steady but filled with concern. "We've seen what happens when things seem too quiet." Blake nodded. He agreed. Every fiber in his being told him that the silence wasn't a good sign. The ships could be a remnant of the forces that had tested humanity before, or they could be something far worse. Whatever it was, humanity would have to face it head-on. Prepare the fleet, launch reconnaissance drones to get a closer look at their ships, and send a message to the Galactic Council. We need to know what we're dealing with. A few moments later, the first drone report came in. The images it transmitted were strange, glowing patterns running across the surface of the alien ships as if they were alive, breathing. The technology was unlike anything Earth had encountered. It was organic and alien, yet precise in its movements. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from them," Harris reported. Blake motioned for the screen to be activated. As the holoscreen flickered to life, an image appeared, a humanoid figure cloaked in shadows, its face hidden beneath a dark helmet. The being's voice was smooth, almost soothing, but there was an underlying threat in every word it spoke. "Admiral Blake," the being began, "we are the Varath, those who watch from the edges of your understanding. We have seen your victory, and we have observed your rise. But what you do not know is that your actions have caused a ripple that you cannot undo." Blake's heart raced. The Varath. This was not a name he had heard before. Who were they? What did they want? "You have made a powerful enemy, Admiral. You may have won this battle, but the war you have started will be unlike anything you've ever faced," the Varath continued. "The galaxy is not just a place of war, it is a place of order. And you, humans, are disrupting that order. You are now a threat." Blake stepped forward, his voice firm, unwavering. "We're not the ones who started this war. We were forced into it. But if you think we'll back down now, you're gravely mistaken." The Varath's figure seemed to pulse with a dark energy. "We don't expect you to back down, Admiral. But understand this. The power you now hold is temporary. You will find that your galaxy is far more complex and dangerous than you've ever imagined." Before Blake could respond, the transmission was abruptly cut off, and the ships around Earth began to move once more, their engines firing up in a synchronized, terrifying pattern. "What are they doing?" Carver asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Blake didn't answer. His mind raced. The Varath were a new threat, something far more powerful and enigmatic than the previous invaders. The galaxy wasn't just a battleground. It was a chessboard, and humanity had just moved into the game. Blake turned to his crew, determination burning in his eyes. Prepare for the worst. We may have just become the galaxy's next target. But we're not backing down. Not now. Not ever. The fleet was on high alert. Every soldier, every officer, and every commander knew that humanity had just crossed a line. The Virath were not like the alien armadas they had previously faced. They were something more. A shadow in the galaxy, watching from the darkness. And now, they had made their move. Their message was clear. Humanity had awakened a new war, one they could not escape. Admiral Blake stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Defender, his gaze fixed on the stars ahead. The Virath ships were still circling Earth's orbit, their glowing forms barely visible against the black backdrop of space. He couldn't shake the feeling that these creatures were watching, waiting for something. "Admiral, we're receiving another transmission from the Virath," Lieutenant Harris said, his voice tense. "They're asking for a meeting." Blake's hand gripped the railing tighter. He knew that this wasn't a request for peace. It was another move in a game that had just started, and humanity was the unwitting player. He couldn't trust them, not after the tone of their last message. "Put them through," Blake ordered, his voice cold and steady. The holoscreen flickered to life, showing the same dark figure, the leader of the Virath. This time, the figure's features were slightly more visible, its face a haunting blend of organic and mechanical, with glowing red eyes that seemed to pierce through the screen. "Admiral Blake," the figure's voice echoed, "you do not understand the consequences of your actions. The galaxy has a natural order, and your rise, your victory, has disrupted it. We are the ones who have kept that order for eons, and now we must correct the imbalance." Blake's eyes narrowed. "We didn't ask for this war. You forced our hand. Your ships attacked first. Don't pretend we're the aggressors here." The Virath leader tilted its head slightly, as if considering Blake's words. "True, but your victory was not as you think. You may have won a battle, but you've not yet understood the nature of the war. You're not fighting just for survival. You're fighting for control of the galaxy, a position that only the strongest may hold. And you, humans, have no idea what you've set in motion." Blake's thoughts raced. Control of the galaxy. Was that what the Virath were really after? Or was there something else lurking beneath their cryptic words? "I'll tell you what I know," Blake said, his voice steady, trying to mask the uncertainty he felt. "We're fighting for freedom. We're fighting to protect our people. We didn't choose this path, but now we've come too far. We'll fight anyone who tries to take that from us. If you want to challenge us, then make your move." For a moment, the Virath leader said nothing, its red eyes glowing brighter in the silence. Then it spoke, its voice more ominous than ever. "We will be watching, Admiral, and the galaxy will be watching. If you think your victory over the invaders was the end, then you are gravely mistaken. This war is far from over. In fact, it is only just beginning." The transmission abruptly cut off, leaving Blake staring at the empty holoscreen. The words hung in the air, heavy with threat. The Virath were more than just a new enemy. They were an ancient power, one that had been watching humanity for much longer than they realized. Blake turned to Carver, who had been standing silently beside him. The captain's face was grim, his brow furrowed with concern. "We've just been warned," Carver said quietly. "But what does that really mean? If the Virath are this ancient power, then how much do we really know about them? What are they capable of?" Blake rubbed his temples, trying to process the weight of the situation. "We don't know, and that's what worries me. They're playing a game we don't understand, and it's only a matter of time before they make their move." The tension on the bridge was palpable. Every officer, every soldier, knew that the galaxy was about to change. Humanity had been thrust into the center of an intergalactic power struggle, and no one could predict what would happen next. The Virath had their eyes on Earth, and their threats were not empty. This was a challenge to humanity's place in the galaxy, and Blake was not sure if they could win it. "Sir, we've got incoming," Harris called out from his station. "More ships. This time, it's the Varath fleet. They're heading straight for Earth." Blake's heart sank. He had been hoping for more time. Time to prepare. Time to understand the true scope of the enemy. But now, the final test had arrived. "Ready the fleet," Blake ordered, his voice filled with determination. "We're not running. We've stood our ground before, and we'll do it again. We'll protect this planet, no matter what." As the Defender and its fleet readied for battle, Blake looked out the window at the incoming ships. The Varath were here, and they weren't backing down. The stakes had never been higher. This was the fight for humanity's survival, the battle that would determine the future of the galaxy. Blake's mind raced as he prepared for the battle that would determine the fate of Earth and beyond. The first wave of Varath ships loomed in space, their dark silhouettes against the stars. It was humanity's greatest test, one that would define whether they were the galaxy's conquerors or its downfall. The war was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun.